ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
It is a tough Christmas in the Middle East right now, especially in Syria. If you're not up on what's going on, that's understandable because it's almost like the Western media kind of forgot about Syria. You know, in 2011, that's all you heard about. Assad, and I mean this in the best possible way and the worst, Assad was being portrayed as the new Saddam Hussein. And there was a tremendous push in both political parties in the United States and in some of the other Western countries to pursue a strategy of regime change. Then the American public was a little war weary, and there was also some opposition to, in the aftermath of what had happened in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, going forward with regime change in yet another country. But so things seemed to kind of calm down, and it seemed like Assad, who claimed that the people that were trying to overthrow him were essentially the very same Islamic jihadists that came to power after Gaddafi was toppled in Libya, which happened to be the very same Islamic jihadists that carried out terrorist attacks like the ones that occurred on September 11th. It seemed like Assad, as brutal of a dictator as he might be, seemed like he kind of got a handle on things, and things seemed relatively calm. Well, you know how the Middle East is. Nothing is ever calm. And it's been reported over the last few days that the rebels, the anti-Assad forces in Syria, which Assad is still claiming are Islamic jihadist terrorists, have made some major gains of late, including in the city of Aleppo. What does this mean for the West? And what's actually going on? Here to help us break this down is Ambassador Peter Ford. He was a former British ambassador to both Bahrain and Syria, and these days he serves as the deputy leader of the Workers' Party of Britain. Ambassador Ford, thanks for joining me on the radio again.
It's wonderful to be back, even though the occasion for it is a sad one with what's happening in Syria.
Yeah, Ambassador, we never really seem to have a lot of feel-good moments to get together and discuss. It's always usually someone killing somebody else or being on the verge of killing someone else. Maybe we'll make a date to start discussing more upbeat topics as well.
Indeed. Well, there was a happy moment at Christmas time in 2017 in Aleppo when a Christmas tree was put up for the first time in years, and that was because this brutal dictator, as you described him, Assad, facilitated the raising of a Christmas tree in Aleppo after the jihadis, the head choppers, had persecuted the Christians in that city for several years while they controlled it. So, believe me, the Christians in Syria this Christmas are very, very sad, very distressed.
I can imagine. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Ambassador Peter Ford. All right, before we get into the analysis and the implications of what's next for Syria and what's next for the West, give us the facts. What exactly is happening in Syria? What's the latest?
Well, the jihadis from their safe haven up on the Turkish border, a province called Idlib, have staged a breakout. It's a little bit like October 7, Hamas's breakout. They made surprising gains into Israel, had the advantage of surprise, and something similar but on a much bigger scale has happened in northern Syria. The jihadis have broken out with astonishing speed, taken a whole swathe of territory in northern Syria, have taken control of Syria's second city, Aleppo, and have started to move south towards another big city, Hama. It's a fast-moving situation, but I believe the Syrian army has, which fell back, made a tactical retreat. There hasn't actually been much fighting. They fell back, established a new line of defense just north of the city of Hama, and but the situation changes almost with the hour. But what we can say is that the jihadis have claimed back territory in 5 days that they previously lost to Assad over 5 years. And it will take not 5 days, but at least 5 months or another 5 years for that territory to be regained by Assad, as it will. But between now and then, there'll be a lot of bloodshed.
I know that you've been portrayed in the media as a supporter of the Assad regime. Is that a fair characterization? Do you view yourself that way?
I'm proud to be a supporter of Syria, the Syrian people, and the Syrian people in their great majority, as it happens, prefer to have a secular president, one who's not an Islamist, and who can give them stability. So to that extent, I'm a supporter of Assad. I would be ashamed if I was a supporter of the other side, the headloppers. But in fact, that is what most of the Western governments have been. De facto, over the last decade, the Western countries have been trying to weaken Assad, to topple Assad, with the result that we're now beginning to see, the breakout by these Islamist fanatics that we have facilitated, helped with money, with weapons, with information warfare, and now we're getting our way. Donald Trump wanted to stop all this nonsense, but he was thwarted by the deep state. He wanted to withdraw the U.S. troops, who are in the number of about 900 in Syria. But he was thwarted twice by the deep state. I have high hopes that after January 20, Donald Trump will make a very positive difference in Syria and stop this covert support for head choppers.
Two-part question here, and for folks that are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Ambassador Peter Ford. First part is, why do you think the West wants to back the head choppers, as you called them, over Assad? What's so threatening about Assad remaining in power that they're willing to partner with terrorists in order to do that? And two, understanding how you view the situation, are there any just regular democracy-loving revolutionaries among the rebels, or are the rebels entirely consisting of Islamic jihadist terrorists?
The Western powers can't bear Assad because he's independent and he won't kowtow. And he is helped by those demons, Russia and Iran, and therefore whatever it costs to the Syrian people, Assad must be toppled. Syria is paying the price for the fact that the Western powers hate Russia and Iran. I was there over 10 years ago at a moment when Assad was pretty new, and we were a little bit cozying up to him, but we were thwarted in the end because of the Iraq war that came along. But we've missed a massive opportunity. We could have turned Syria. It didn't need to fall into the arms of Russia and Iran. It was us who pushed Syria there. But that situation could be reversed if, when we get a new president, we see things differently. Mainly because the second question, yes, 99.9% of the people opposing Assad are Islamists. They virtually all belong to one single sect of Islam. They are identical in their method to ISIS. I call them head choppers for a reason, and that's already being documented in some gruesome videos of surrendering Syrian soldiers being butchered. So that we could, the West could objectively be helping these people overthrow a ruler who may not be perfect, but is supported by a majority of his people, particularly by Christians and other minorities. It beggars belief that we're on the wrong side.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
At Sephora, we've got what you want because you're obsessed with your skin, and we're obsessed with what it needs. Sephora has the best products to help you get beautiful, glowing, radiant skin. With an extensive, inclusive range of results-driven formulas and in-store beauty advisors to help you find exactly which are right for you, the best skincare is only at Sephora. Sephora, for all your skincare.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
The way that you characterize Assad as not being perfect, a lot of Western media would go much further. They'll point out that Syria remains a country where there are countless human rights abuses, including purportedly torture and extrajudicial killings that apparently has been fairly well documented. Folks are going to listen to our conversation now and ask, how do you justify support for a regime that's been accused of war crimes and against a backdrop of indiscriminate violence against Syrian civilians?
Well, I think we should have respect for the opinion of ordinary Syrians. And before this latest flare-up, opinion polls in Syria were showing about 70% support for the president. People appreciated the stability. You can't overemphasize the importance of stability. We take it for granted in the West. You know, maybe it's a police state because there's a lot of policing to be done, a lot of terrorists. And we used ourselves in places like Guantanamo some pretty questionable methods. So I don't think we're well placed to preach about human rights and war crimes, etc. Let's have some respect for the people of Syria. Let's remember what's happening in Aleppo today and what's not going to happen. The raising of the Christmas tree, which Assad facilitated. Let's give a thought to the Syrian Christians who are in absolute despair at this moment nearing Christmas. Let's give them some support and not keep trying to undermine the guy who's trying to protect them.
Irrespective of the moral virtues of either Assad or the rebels, given the recent gains made by the rebel forces, including the gains that we've been talking about in Aleppo, does that suggest that Assad's grip on power is increasingly tenuous? What does it mean for the future of the regime if this momentum continues, especially when Assad's main allies, you mentioned Russia, but you could also make the case that Iran is a main ally, that they're stretched pretty thin by their commitments elsewhere?
Yes, the Syrian armed forces have been weakened over the last decade, particularly by American and European sanctions on Syria. I mean, this is one of the things not reported in the media, but Syria has been under heavy sanctions for over a decade, more severe than those that were applied to Iraq. For example, they can't get access to oil. If they're lucky, they get 4 hours of electricity a day. Or they can't use the dollar for trade transactions, which makes trade virtually impossible. The Syrian state, the Syrian armed forces have been drastically weakened by Western sanctions. So when we see these horrors happening, it's down to us because we weakened the Syrian army quite deliberately. It's been an openly admitted strategy to weaken the Syrians and to whip up discontent so that there would be a fresh rebellion that would topple Assad. We're getting our wishes. We have been instrumental in this. And it's not the first time, because you'll remember that at one point we were supporting the Taliban just because we hated the Russians, and we supported the Taliban to get rid of the Russians, and look what came of that.
The international community, including the UN, has called for a political process to end the conflict in Syria, yet the situation has apparently deteriorated further. In your opinion, why has there been no genuine political progress, and why do you think Assad, who claims to be in power with popular support, has failed to engage in meaningful dialogue with his opposition?
Well, there is no credible civilian opposition.
It's just terrorists. That's it.
There are some puppets, but they don't have any popular support. And Assad can't negotiate with like the new ISIS. Now they're not interested in negotiating anyway. All you could have are discussions with a few doctors and teachers who pretend to be the Syrian civilian opposition, but who represent nobody except a few of their Western backers who pay them salaries. There is no civilian opposition that can be negotiated with. And the people doing the fighting, surely, in a civil war, you have to accept, well, who's calling the shots, literally? What's the point of negotiating with a bunch of powerless civilians who don't call the shots anyway, who can't end the fighting? And that's why there has been no progress in political talks.
Gotcha. In 2011, it was reported that Assad's violent suppression of peaceful protests occurred, and that was sort of the initial spark that ignited the war at that time. Is that accurate from your perspective? Was there violent suppression of peaceful protests?
No. There were staged incidents, agents provocateurs. Of course, there's been disquiet in Syria, as in many, many places in the Middle East. The police are not overly gentle with political opposition, but what happened in 2011 was planned. It was a staged incident. People were put in high rises to shoot on the armed forces and bring about the heavy response that then lit the blue touch paper. No, please don't get the idea that this was a genuine popular uprising. The jihadis were ready on day one, and they'd been armed by us.
David in the Bronx has a question or a comment. David, you're on with Ambassador Peter Ford.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the ambassador. Mr. Ambassador, you did not mention Hezbollah at all. Hezbollah was instrumental in the last retakeover of Aleppo by the Syrian government, and Iran has been using Syria as a way to funnel weapons into Lebanon. And the reason this invasion happened, which is supported by Turkey, by the way, is because of the weakness of Hezbollah, Iran, and Russia, because they're occupied in other locations. So this notion that somehow the United States is behind this is ridiculous. And if I could say one last thing before you comment, you claim that the Syrians support Assad by 70%, but you didn't mention that millions of Syrians fled the country during the civil war and have not returned. So who is this 70% that you refer to, please? Thank you.
Hezbollah are loved by the Christians of Syria. Reflect on that. They protected the Syrian villages when the jihadis were swarming over Syria the last time, and this time it's obviously more difficult. Hezbollah have been decimated by Israel. This is one of the main reasons this crisis has blown up, because Hezbollah have not been able to help Assad keep the northern part of the country pacified. But, it's Christmas. Think about the Christians. Think about their wishes. They are grateful to Hezbollah. Yeah, I know, shocking. You're not told this by the media, but this is the truth. All the minorities of Syria hang together, whether they're Christians, Shia Muslims, Sunni, secular types, non-Islamists, who are actually the majority. So that is the situation. You may not like it, but that is how Syrians feel. The diaspora, sure, they have a vested interest in being against Assad. They wouldn't keep refugee status if they were thought to be Assad supporters. So, think about that as well. That's their vested interest.
Thank you, David. Appreciate the question. You indicated a level of optimism with the forthcoming Trump administration. Tell me what you're expecting, at least as it relates to Syria policy and the United States with Trump and his team coming in. It's very interesting because you have some people that have been basically echoing many of your sentiments on this stuff. I'm thinking of people like Tulsi Gabbard. And then you have other people that are going to be part of the foreign policy team like Marco Rubio, who have a polar opposite view to yours in terms of how to handle the Syria situation. What are you expecting from Trump?
Well, I'm encouraged by what happened last time round. Trump, although he didn't have any good advisors, nevertheless backed his own judgment and called for the withdrawal of U.S. forces. Now, this is very important because those forces, although they're few in number, they're actually based in vital strategic areas, the areas that control Syria's oil. So they prevent, just by their presence, they prevent the Syrian army taking control of those rich oil areas. So Syria is deprived of its own oil. And that is a major reason why they only have 4 hours of electricity a day. So withdrawal of those U.S. forces would lead to negotiations between the Syrian government and the Kurds, who mostly live in that rich area and who are now being attacked by the head choppers, by the way. That would make a vast difference and allow the country to recover. So I'm really hoping that President Trump will remember his good intentions last time, have one or two, listen to Tulsi Gabbard, who knows what she's talking about, and do the right thing for America's own interests. America has no interest in destabilizing Syria and paving the way for these Islamist fanatics to take control of the country.
Apparently, it's being reported that President Trump is pushing for some sort of an Israel-Gaza ceasefire deal to be implemented by the time he takes office on January 20th. Is that something that you could see happening?
Well, good luck with that. It's a tall order. It's commendable that this is even being put around. It does put some pressure on the parties to negotiate. I have to say I'm personally pessimistic about this. I don't see Netanyahu being ready to negotiate until he's done a lot more damage in Gaza. But there's a little bit more hope than under the Biden administration, who've been completely passive, pretending to try to sort the situation, but doing nothing in practice to halt the carnage.
I know that there were recently British parliamentary elections, and the big story was the change in government from Conservative to Labour. But one of the secondary stories is that this new Conservative third party, Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, they picked up a few seats, and looks like they're picking up some momentum in terms of being an alternative to the Conservative Party among right-leaning Britons. How did the elections turn out from your perspective, and what do you see as the future of your party, the Workers' Party of Britain?
Well, the future belongs to the Farage Party, Reform, and ourselves, the Workers' Party. There's massive disillusionment with the Labour government. They've dropped in the ratings by record amounts. The previous government, the Conservatives, were already drooping, and they've done nothing since the election to recover. Nigel Farage's party is on the up and up. So against the background of that disillusionment, we're expecting, as the Workers' Party, and, the name is the giveaway. We're a workers' party. We're expecting to profit as soon as there are opportunities in interim elections. You'll see how well we're going to be doing. But it's mainly a story of massive disillusionment with this Biden-esque Labour government. They supported Biden because that's what they're like. And already within just 5 months, their popularity has dropped like a stone.
I know Farage has come out in favor of changing the British parliamentary system to a proportional representation system so that parties would get seats in proportion with the amount of votes that they would get. I would assume that would be something that, even though you're more on the leftward end of the political spectrum, I would assume that's something that you'd be wholeheartedly in favor of as well.
No.
No.
Be careful what you wish for. You don't want to end up in a situation where a coalition can be held hostage, for example, by the Greens. and the Greens have quite an amount of support in this country. And I'm with the Donald on this, drill, baby, drill. So you don't want to have people like that in a position to demand conditions for allowing a new government to be formed.
Got it.
Be careful what you wish for.
Got it. Ambassador Ford, I appreciate the insight, and thank you for taking the time. I hope we can chat again.
I'd love it. A pleasure.
Thank you. Ambassador Peter Ford. If you want to comment on any portion of our discussion, feel free to give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.